the budget has been a very big topic for the last little bit. And I wanted to hear some of your input. Should the city of Mesquite have a balanced budget, even if it means cutting some of the city's services?
Yes. Yes. The road to perdition is spending money we don't have. And you look at every city, every county, every state, and don't even think about the federal government right now. And the trouble they're all in is because of budget shortfalls, and when the ugliness really starts happening is when you start spending money you don't have.
Well, one of the things that they use to not necessarily justify it, but to explain it is we've got a significant amount of money put away in reserves.
Right.
So when we talk about a deficit, we're not really the traditional deficit where there really isn't any more money, and it's not like the federal deficit where we just crank up the presses. We're drawing money from the reserve fund, but that's obviously going to be a finite fund. How do you feel about continuing that practice?
Well, that's the problem. We've already been doing it for the last 2 years, I understand. So sooner or later, that reserve fund runs out of gas. And absolutely, you've got to be able to use those monies when they're necessary for short-term situations. But this, we could very easily fall into a double-dip recession. If you think about it, here we are, we're digging ourselves out of this hole right now. Gasoline is knocking on the $4 a gallon door. What happens if the Egyptians start shooting at the Syrians, start shooting at anybody over there? I mean, immediately gasoline goes to $10 a gallon, and we're back in recession again, and we don't have the reserves anymore. So aviation has an interesting analogy that I like real well, and they say that takeoffs are optional, but landings are mandatory, and that's very, very true. But if we spend all of our reserve fund, or if we're down to where we have very little, our options go away. We ran out of altitude, airspeed, and options all at the same time, and we have just enough fuel to get to the scene of the crash. So if we preserve that as much as we can, really let an emergency be an emergency, anticipate that it can get much worse than it is right now, and balance the budget and make do or do without, then we're much wiser.
Okay. One of the options whenever you start talking about balancing a budget is not only cutting but also increasing revenues. Mm-hmm. Would you vote for a tax increase to balance the budget?
I could categorically say no, but you can't categorically say anything. I can't foresee a good reason to vote for more taxes. As a small businessman, I'm taxed to the hilt as it is. I've taken very, very substantial hits and can't afford it anymore. And you just can't afford it anymore.
Okay.
If small business is going to employ people, they got to have the money to do it with, and most of us are out of it.
Okay. And to close the loophole, how about increasing fees, which is usually considered just another tax, but somehow politicians often will they don't count that as a tax increase. How do you feel about increasing fees?
I think things need to be paid for as they go, as much as we possibly can. So if the problem you run into there is whose special deal gets to pay fees and whose doesn't. So how do you make it fair across the board? And that's difficult. But I don't like subsidies as a matter of course under very few circumstances anyway. And so fees would be something I could consider easier than taxes, because fees typically are voluntary. You don't have to participate in the thing that you're paying the fee for. Where taxes are not voluntary. They're there. The man's going to come take what you got.
Okay. Changing the subject just a little bit. A lot has been made in the recent actions at City Hall involving the elimination of the city manager. Would you vote to bring Tim Hacker back as city manager?
No.
Okay. And sort of along the same lines, there's been some discussion of trying to, let's see how it works without a city manager. Is that something that you would like to see the city try, or how do you feel about that?
I've got to do a little bit more research, but right now, if we don't fill that position, it's somewhere considerably over $200,000 to a city who needs money desperately that we wouldn't have to fill. We've got a brand new council. We've got a brand new mayor we will have a brand new council, and a brand new mayor who are still full of stars in their eyes, thinking they can make a difference. So if we send those guys in there to find out the information, particularly the mayor, then we can get a lot of stuff done. But also, We've got outstanding department heads. Several of them that I've met so far I'm pretty impressed with. They know how to run their department, so all you really need is coordination between those departments, and if they're doing their job right, that shouldn't be too difficult for us to do in there, either by a coalition of them that's headed by the mayor or some other way. But here's a chance for us to think outside of City Hall. Here's a chance for us to do something different and hope we get a different result than it is doing the same thing we've been doing and getting the same result.
Okay. And piggybacking on that idea, how do you feel about the idea of the city changing from its current council-manager form of government to perhaps a mayor-council form or some other form that does not rely on a city manager form of operation?
We've had charters thrown around quite a bit and never could get entirely behind one. The dangerous part is it's tough. It's much tougher in our situation to have a balanced checks and balances type of government. So if you get one really strong individual that's very ambitious or very, very good at what they do, or for any other number of reasons, too much power can be concentrated in one office, particularly when somebody else is not paying attention, or if you just have more money than you know what to do with and nobody cares. So I'd be very careful but I'm very interested in looking at other options.
Okay. One of the things that was brought up at a recent forum was the idea of what involvement should the city have in trying to market Mesquite. Talk a little bit about what you think should be the city's involvement in marketing. Should we be involved in marketing the city of Mesquite? Should city dollars be used for trying to market outside the area? How do you feel about that?
Okay. Most of the economic development schemes that I've seen done almost anywhere wind up being either huge boondoggles whereby private entities benefit considerably from public financing. That tends to go to a selected few groups of individuals who, the opportunity for ugliness is huge there. And then I've never seen anywhere where, frankly, I've never seen anywhere where an economic development scheme that's financed by the government has been successful. You'll get people coming in to buy your freebies, you'll get people coming in, what can you do for me next? Mostly those people who are serious about business and who know how to do it and who have their own money and guts and vision involved in it already know what they're looking for, and those parameters are pretty short. Will they take the freebies if they're available? Absolutely. But I guarantee they will go where a market is, where the transportation is, where the labor pool is, where the regulatory process is friendly toward them, i.e. not getting in their way. They'll go more toward that than they will toward the freebies. If you run loss leaders in retail, for instance, you'll discover that people will come in, take your free stuff and leave. They never come back and they never spend money. It's been my experience the same thing to do in my own business when I offered those types of things. So I'm very, very chary of ideas of government being involved in that. Private enterprise does it vastly better.
Okay. And the same question, but this time focusing on bringing tourism into Mesquite. Do you have the same approach?
Again, yeah, I do, pretty much. The casinos and those guys, that's their job. They will take anything we can give them. I mean, if we're willing to spend $100,000 to hold a pink elephant show down the street and it draws 50 people who spend money here, they're going to be all in favor of it because it costs them nothing. They got a benefit from it. But they're much smarter at this than we are. They're the pros, and I think we ought to let them do it.